I decided to go ahead and cook this wheat crunch. So what I'm going to do with this now is just take it over to the sink, drain it, rinse it really well. Wheat kernels have been rinsed out and pot filled with a couple of inches of water above the kernels. We're just going to cover that one up. And I have the heat turned on high just to get it to a boil. Once it's boiling, we're going to turn it down on low and simmer it for about, I'm going to say 45 minutes. Last time I had tried the recipe, they recommended an hour, but I found after 45 minutes last batch that was actually about sufficient for what they needed to be. Okay, it looks like the wheat kernels are boiling here. So we are going to turn that down to very low and mixing it, making sure to scrape the bottom of the pan just so the kernels don't stick to the pot. So pretty easy recipe. That's most of what it is. So again, I'm just going to set the timer on here for about 45 minutes. And we'll put the lid back on, just leaving a little bit of room for some of the steam to escape so it doesn't spill over. I will come back and check it every 10 minutes or so just to give it a good stir again, scraping up the bottom, as well as just double check to make sure that there's still lots of liquids and that nothing's going to burn there. So I will see you back in about 45 minutes. All right, time's up on that. So let's see what we got. So you can see how the kernels have even grown in size since we put them in there, and they're starting to split. So that tells me that they're done. So all I gotta do is take them off the heat, drain them, and put them in the fridge. You could use them just like that on a salad or however you want to use them. I'm gonna keep it going though and make wheat crunch. So I cooked these wheat kernels last night and drained them out, put them in the fridge. And this is what they look like the next morning. Now I'm ready to cook them. Now we do have a couple of options for cooking these up. The first one that I had done was putting a bit of oil in a frying pan and cooking those till they start popping and get that crunch to them. Not a huge fan of cooking with a whole bunch of oil. So the second batch that I did them in the oven. And they turned out just as nice. So I'm just going to go with that again for this video. So what we've got lined up here is a couple of baking trays lined with some parchment paper just for easy cleanup and so that stuff doesn't stick to the pan. And we're going to lay them out like this, just a nice thin layer so that it bakes evenly everywhere. So let's just get this other one set up and then we'll get them in the oven. And that's both trays ready to go in the oven. So I've got the temperature preheating to 425 right now. So we'll just wait till that gets to the right temperature and we'll get them in the oven. Our oven is at 425 and ready to go. So let's get these in the oven. Perfect. Looks good. So unlike my last video, this one I did not have a recipe for, so I don't know exactly how long to set on the timer. I started up my stopwatch just to see how long I've been cooking this for. It's been about 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna take each one of these trays out real quick. Ooh, careful, the heat comes out pretty good. And we're just going to give this a quick stir just so that's nothing sticking up and that it cooks on both sides nice and evenly. So then we'll just pop those back in and go again. 12.5 minutes in here and the kernels are looking pretty dehydrated. So that's good. Now I'm just going to turn this onto broil. I'm just on low broil though. So let's do that and hit start. That's just going to give the kernels that kind of toasted crunch to them. Again, anytime I've cooked anything on broil, you just want to make sure you keep a really close eye on it, especially these little kernels, because they will not take very long to burn at all. So I did open up the oven again, give them a quick shake, and I did move the trays up a couple of racks higher, just closer to the broiling element on top, just because it does seem to be taking a little while here. So I just bumped that up and hopefully we'll get them to where they need to be real quick. All right, there we go. I don't know if you can see it very well in the camera, but I'm starting to see some of these little kernels pop, similarly to popcorn, but don't worry, they don't quite shoot all over the place like popcorn does, so it shouldn't burn down in the bottom of the oven or nothing. But that is your tell that once the popping finishes or slows down to almost nothing, that's when you want to be taking them out to just check them out for crunch and that they're ready. Same thing when you're frying them in the pan on the stove. Like, they'll do the same thing. They'll pop and then they'll just slow down or stop popping, and that's when they're ready to go. So now that I've got this on broil, the heat's coming from the top. So the top tray is popping pretty good, but not seeing much action from the bottom tray. So I'm actually going to rotate these around just so the bottom gets roasting up evenly as well. This is the tray that I pulled out from the top, so you can see the darker kernels that have roasted a bit longer there. So we'll keep those in as well. There we go. That didn't take long at all since I moved the bottom tray up, and it's starting to pop nicely as well. So we're just going to leave that for a couple more minutes till they stop popping, and we'll take these trays out and check them out. So these are taking a while to get crispy since I turned them on broil, but I did have these on the lower racks just because our stove would kind of cut off the sight here for the camera. So once I did bring them up to the highest racks in the oven, it sure sped up that cooking and crisping process. So doing it at home, again, you want to save on time, put them right up to the top from the get-go just to get them going. There we go. So kernels are looking nice and toasted. You can see the edges of the parchment paper have also roasted. So I'm going to call it and take both of those out. Turn off the oven. So I'm just going to let those cool for a couple minutes and I'll come back and check on them. Okay, so those have had a little bit of time to cool down. So I'm curious to see here, when I had these going into soak overnight, I do believe I had about 1 3/4 cups of kernels and about 3 times as much liquid in for soaking. So I'm curious to see here, I've got my measuring cup and I'm going to dump these kernels into it just to see how much I ended up with after all this. So all the kernels in, looks like it gave me about 2 cups. So not a whole lot different portion from what I started with. And if you're pulling the kernels out of the oven and you're not 100% sure if they're ready, test them out. Try a couple. Super crunchy. You'll know. Now that these are done baking, all that there is really left to do is seasoning them. So it's up to you if you want to make one big batch of all the same seasoning or portion them out into smaller containers and do some variety. So what I would recommend is putting a little bit of oil in there just to kind of coat them up and then season them up with whatever you'd like, salt and pepper. I personally like the popcorn seasoning, which there's so many different flavors for. Or if you're someone who likes a little heat, put some cayenne pepper or try with some different herbs, spices. The options are endless. All right, hope you've enjoyed wheat kernels. Again, takes me back to years ago when these were still in existence. Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore, but I can make them myself now, so I'm all happy. Yay. Thanks for following. Bye.